Hello, everybody, and welcome to our weekly policy update with what is happening in different states across the country. My name is Jax James. I am the NORML State Policy Manager, and I work with chapters to make sure that we have action alerts and engagement and emails going out or surrounding this legislation. And so what I want to talk about today is newly filed and moving legislation. In the description of this live stream, you will find a link to our blog post that will have all of the information about the bills and action alerts there. And of course, if you're watching and you want to check out and see what's going on in your state, you can go to norml.org/act. You'll see a dynamic map of the US there, and you can hover over your state and it will show you all of the moving legislation that is filed in your state. So this is by no means all of the bills that we are following, but rather the ones that are moving or that we have had newly filed and we want to highlight. So we have got some great updates across the country. And while I'm going over the ones that we're highlighting in the blog today, I encourage you to comment below where you're watching from. And then that way, if I don't cover your state, we can come back and discuss how you might be able to engage where you are at. So let us start first with legalization. So big news this week is what's going on in Delaware. There are two bills in Delaware. One is HB 1 that removes all the penalties for possession for 21 and up. And this personal possession is essentially 1 ounce or less of cannabis flower, 12 grams or less of concentrates, and a product that contains 750 milligrams or less of Delta-9. Then there's HB 2, kind of a companion bill, also known as the Delaware Marijuana Control Act, and it regulates and taxes adult use sales, promotes equality and inclusion in the legal industry from communities that have been disproportionately impacted by prohibition, and then reinvests a portion of tax revenue into those disproportionately impacted communities. So HB 1 and HB 2 have passed both chambers with a supermajority support. The bills have both been delivered to the governor, and he has 10 days to act on the bill. For HB 1, that is Saturday, April 22nd, and for HB 2, that is Wednesday, April 26th. Now, Democratic Governor John Carney has previously expressed opposition to further liberalizing adult use cannabis laws and has even vetoed bills in the past. So it is extremely important, if you are watching in Delaware or if you know someone in Delaware, that you share and participate in this action alert. Now, in Minnesota, I'm sure you guys have been watching as HF 100 and SF 73 go through all of these different committee hearings. And what this bill does is it allows those 21 and up to purchase up to 2 ounces of cannabis and to home cultivate up to 8 plants. It also creates the system for retail cannabis businesses while allowing municipalities and counties to own and operate government dispensaries. Further, those with marijuana convictions can have their records automatically expunged. The legislation also allows for on-site consumption lounges and cannabis delivery services, and it also contains language banning the sale of unregulated synthetic cannabinoids, which is consistent with the Board of Pharmacy rules put into place last year. So HF 100 has passed 15 committees and now heads to the House floor for a vote. And SF 73 has passed 13 committees, and it anticipates 2 more panels before heading to the Senate floor. So definitely participate there. Now, in New Hampshire, there's 2 bills. HB 639, which would allow 21 and up to purchase, possess, or gift 4 ounces of cannabis. It does allow localities to limit or ban businesses from operating in their area. And within 18 months of enactment, the State Department of Health and Human Services must develop regulations allowing existing medical cannabis dispensaries to apply for dual licensing to serve adult consumers. Then there's also HB 360 in New Hampshire, which legalizes the possession and use of cannabis for those 21 and up and strikes basically all references to cannabis in the state's Controlled Drugs Act. Both of these bills have passed the House of Representatives in New Hampshire, and they are scheduled for a hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee tomorrow on April 20th. Happy 420 in New Hampshire. Now, newly filed legislation in North Carolina, HB 626, would allow for adults 21 and up to have 2 ounces of flour, 2,000 milligrams of THC in a concentrate form, and it further would permit home cultivation of 6 plants. So that is some great legislation happening in North Carolina. Before I go to the medical bills I want to highlight, I'm just going to come and check out the comments over here. We got some people from Maryland, Virginia. Awesome, awesome. Welcome, guys. All right, so let's talk about some medical access that's moving. In California, SB 302 expands current law requiring specific types of healthcare facilities to allow terminally ill patients to use medical cannabis within the healthcare facility. The legislation expands the law to provide access to those patients 65 years of age or older who struggle with a chronic disease. This bill is scheduled for a hearing, was scheduled for a hearing yesterday in the Senate Judiciary Committee and is pending a vote as of today. Further, in Vermont, we've got HB 270, which increases the number of plants allowed for patients to cultivate at home, allowing for 6 mature and 12 immature plants. The bill increases the maximum allowable THC content in a single edible product. Excuse me. That snuck up on me. In an edible product from 500 to 100 or 50 to 100 milligrams. Sorry, sneeze kind of got me off there. It also expands the list of qualifying conditions for medical cannabis treatment while increasing the number of patients a caregiver may provide services for at once. It further removes annual registration fees for qualifying caregivers. Now, this bill has passed the House of Representatives and is pending a vote in the Senate Committee on Agriculture. There are a few other additional bills that I want to highlight. In Alaska, HB 28 reduces employment barriers for those that have previously been convicted for low-level possession, and it prohibits the release of conviction records concerning those possession charges by the court system or any other agency. This bill would also, to the largest extent possible, purge records of these convictions from publicly accessible records. This bill is pending a vote in the House Judiciary Committee. In Arkansas, we've got House Resolution 1079 and Senate Resolution 54, which extends the renewal of medical marijuana identification cards from 1 year to 2 years without increasing the annual fee. The bill also seeks to discount the registry fee for those that are seniors or veterans by 50%. 2 bills in California. AB 374 permits cannabis lounges to sell non-cannabis infused food and beverages and also allows them to sell tickets to concerts and other events. This bill has passed the Assembly Business and Professions Committee and is now scheduled for a hearing in the Assembly Government Organizations Committee on the 26th of this month. Another California bill, SB 285, authorizes local jurisdictions to allow for the preparation or sale of non-cannabis food and beverage products by a licensed retailer or a micro business in an area where consumption of cannabis is allowed. This bill has passed the Senate Business Professions and Economic Committee with a vote of 12-1. A Colorado bill that we're tracking, HB 1279, permits residents to purchase marijuana products online with the opportunity to pick up the product or have it delivered to their home. This bill has passed the House 40-23 and has now been assigned to the Senate Finance Committee. In Illinois, SB 125 prohibits law enforcement from engaging in motor vehicle searches based solely on the odor of burnt or raw cannabis. This bill has passed the Senate 33-20 and is scheduled for a hearing in the House Executive Committee today on the 19th. In Louisiana, HB 286 allows for marijuana possession misdemeanor offense charges to file for a motion of expungement of their records 90 days following their conviction. First-time offenders would be exempted from the processing fees. And this bill has a hearing in the Criminal Justice Committee on the 20th, so tomorrow. Then we've got some bills or a bill in Maine, LD 1530, which would authorize on site cannabis consumption at certain medical dispensaries. Now, in order to comply with new regulations, a medical dispensary must administer the product after obtaining a department permit and also creating a space physically separate from the dispensary or prescription site. This bill is scheduled for a hearing in the House Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee today, so hopefully we will see that advance as well. Now, there's two bills in Massachusetts having to do with employment discrimination. HB 1914 protects consumers from discrimination based on cannabis use or impairment and provides an attorney fee award for employees who are successful in challenging employment discrimination. Additionally, HB 1955 prohibits employers from testing their employees for cannabis without the individual employee's express consent, and employment may not be hinged on the test results, both concerning termination or hiring. In Nevada, AB 411 allows doctors to administer non smoked formulations of medical cannabis to patients in certain hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, or those that are undergoing hospice care. This bill has passed the Assembly Judiciary Committee and now heads to the House floor. Now, in New Hampshire, we've got another bill, HB 431, which would permit qualifying patients and designated caregivers to home cultivate cannabis for therapeutic use. Registered patients would be permitted to grow up to 6 plants, 3 of which could be mature. Under existing law, qualified patients must purchase cannabis from retailers, but they are not allowed to home cultivate. Recently, though, the New Hampshire Therapeutic Cannabis Medical Oversight Board voted to endorse legalizing medical marijuana home cultivation. This bill has passed the House, and it is scheduled for a hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee tomorrow. All right, in Washington, we've got HB 1563, which protects medical cannabis users. If qualifying patient holds a valid authorization but has not been entered into the medical cannabis authorization database, they will be able to be protected from arrest. So this bill has passed the House and the Senate and now heads to the governor's desk. Now, there are 2 final bills that NORML opposes that I wanted to make sure to highlight for you guys. Newly filed AB 6173 in New York prohibits the production and sale of edible cannabis products, as well as other flavored products such as vaporizers. And then in Oklahoma, we've got SB 440, which limits the THC potency of medical cannabis products and prohibits licensed medical marijuana dispensaries from selling medical marijuana products exceeding those limits. Now, in Oklahoma, SB 440 has passed the Senate 43-4, and it has also passed a House committee and is heading to the House floor. So definitely help us oppose that legislation. Okay, coming back over to the comments. All right, I know I saw Maryland, so let's start with that. There are several bills that are on their way to the governor's desk, one having to do with odor, another with parental protections, and then, of course, the bill that is an omnibus bill that would regulate cannabis sales, which was approved based on the referendum that passed back in November. So those are all bills that you can participate in. In Missouri, which I see you guys are watching from there, there's quite a few bills in Missouri. Early release for convictions, having your medicine on campus, preventing odor for being cause for search, removing licensing caps, medical patient protections, and marijuana banking. There's also one that we oppose that has to do with open containers. So you can definitely go check out those. All right, let's see. Florida doesn't have any active, or Michigan. Now, North Carolina, there is, of course, the legalization bill that I talked about, but there's also another bill having to do with medical cannabis, and then a third bill that has to do with medical cannabis and a regulated adult use market. So there are 3 bills there in North Carolina. We've got someone watching from Texas. The medical bill 1805 has passed the House and has been assigned to Senate committee in the Senate, and we are waiting for a hearing announcement there. And then HB 218, which would reduce the penalties associated with possession, has passed committee and is waiting to be assigned to the calendars for the House floor debate. All right, last one I see here is Pennsylvania. There are two bills, one having to do with DUI and one for allowing edibles, that I definitely encourage you to participate in. There has been some conversation about there being a bill having to do with a regulated adult use market, but that has not been filed yet. So thank you guys for posting where you're watching from so that I can make sure that y'all get the most up-to-date information on what's going on in your state. But of course, if you're watching and you didn't hear me mention your state, you can go to norml.org/act, look at that dynamic map there, hover or click on your state, and it'll show you all of the bills that are moving in your state. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I will be back next week to discuss further what legislation is moving across the country. And I hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday. On that note, I'm going to bid y'all adieu.